Welcome, you're watching NDTV Profit. I'm Mahima Vaccharajani. Asian Paints is in focus after its Q3 earnings, where revenue was down 6%. Margins did take a slide from 22.6 to 19.1. And to discuss as to how the quarter gone by and how things are shaping up in the paint sector, we're joined by Mr. Amit Syngle, who is the MD and CEO of Asian Paints, who's joining us now. Welcome to NDTV Profit, Mr. Syngle. Always pleasure speaking with you. My first question to you is that with respect to how the quarter has gone by, was it as per what you had expected, or you had expected slightly better considering the festive season? And what's the road ahead?
So overall, our expectation was much higher, given the fact that we had the one part of the festive month in terms of October this quarter. However, it was a shorter Diwali for us this year, and the festive season was also short. We did not kind of see that kind of a response coming in the month of October, and the all the seasonal markets were affected in the month of October very, very strongly. Moreover, what we saw was a muted demand especially across the urban centers. The demand has been fairly low in terms of what we are seeing. There is also seen some down trading in terms of what we are seeing. On the other hand, I think the rural centers performed much better as compared to the urban centers overall. The industrial sales was also overall good in protective and powder coating segments. Our project segment did well, especially the areas of where government spending is involved, where capex is overall involved to that extent. And I think these were the factors which boosted up the overall performance for the quarter to that extent. But largely, I think there was a disappointment from the point of view of the festive season and the urban centers not really batting. As we move ahead, possibly we would definitely see a little bit of a more surge from a rural demand point of view. We've had good monsoons, and we see that the agrarian economy will start kicking in terms of looking at both Q4 and Q1 in terms of going ahead to that extent. What we also see is that the government spending will be on an upswing to that extent. So we will have more money in terms of infrastructure projects and other things in terms of where the spending would be more. Similarly, the areas of factories spends in terms of what will happen is good. So I think that would be a good area to kind of really look at. Industrial growth would continue in the protective powder coating segment. Auto might see a cyclical downtrend to some extent in terms of what possibly might happen. But on the whole, we would say that Q4 should be better than Q3 in terms of the overall demand. I don't see much change or a little change with respect to the urban centers demand coming up to that extent. And therefore, I think we are a little bit cautious about how Q4 should pan out. And therefore, we are looking at possibly single-digit volume growth there.
Got it. Mr. Syngle, Q4 you might remain cautious, but going ahead, I want to understand from a painting sector overall. We've seen that the entire year, the 9 months gone by, plus you're saying that we will remain, cautious with respect to Q4 as well, has been subdued in terms of the painting sector. When do you expect a recovery? Is there a structural change which is going to take place, or do you expect the same kind of trajectory in FY26 as well?
So overall, this year has been very, very different from so many years, more because of, I think, the overall demand conditions have been fairly muted. We've not seen possibly a year like that, in the last 2 decades or so to that extent. And therefore, what we feel is that it's not something which is just a competitive effect or it's happening because of any other big structural change. I think it's just the overall consumption in terms of which is there. Some possibly consumption trends have been very different to that extent. As we kind of look forward, I think it will take some time before the demand really comes back in its full form and shape to that extent. And therefore, I think going ahead, possibly, I think the areas of projects, industrial would kind of still go much better than the core retail home segment in terms of what we see to that extent. And looking at this, possibly, I think it will take a couple of quarters before we start really seeing much better demand conditions in terms of going forward.
Got it. In terms of, the Q3, we've seen that a good double-digit growth came in for decoratives. We saw that your international business also did very well. What's the overall volume versus value growth been like?
So overall, if you look at from the point of view of a coatings business, overall we would have seen a volume of about 1.7, and we would have seen a value of about 6%. As far as global is concerned, we saw a value growth of about almost 5% in the global revenues in terms of what we see overall to that extent. So I think that's been the overall value volume across various businesses. In terms of industrial, we saw, a value growth which was closer to about 6% in one of the businesses, and about nearly at base in the other business. Overall, the volume growth there have been much better, almost in terms of closer to about double digits there.
Got it. With respect to the new latex paints that you've recently launched, the market share you mentioned in your con call is roughly 7 to 9% right now, and that can go ahead. And because there's a lot of market to tap with respect to when it comes to new latex paints. I want to understand as to how much of a contribution to revenue it is right now, and what are you expecting going ahead, because I believe that margins in the new latex paints are better.
So overall, more from a point of view of, the bottom of the pyramid is where we are kind of looking at placing this product, and we have seen a good response this year. As I said, that the potential of the segment is very, very large in terms of looking forward it. When you look at from a volume perspective, the contribution of this segment is pretty high. From a value segment, it is a little bit lower to that extent, given the fact that it's an economy product overall to that extent. But definitely, I think what we see is that if you are able to make a big dent with from a point of view of overall the bottom of the pyramid segment, it will definitely give us a good boost from a point of view of volumes.
Got it. Mr. Syngle, with respect to competition, you said that there is some shuffling with respect to, market share that keeps happening overall, but it's not significant. And you also said that, your competition has increased their touch points, but the value proposition is also not significant. But do you expect that with increasing touch points that they are, kind of aiming at, there will be significant change coming into place when it comes to market share for FY26, or let's say 2 years down the line by FY27?
See, it's a large market, almost about 80,000 crores is the size of this market. And given the fact that there are, large number of players now in the market, okay, I think every player will try to kind of retain their share to that extent. So I don't think so it is very easy for any player to kind of come and garner very large volumes to that there, or a large share in the market in the near future immediately to that extent. So possibly, I think the shares would kind of remain in single digits in terms of what we see to that extent. I think very difficult for someone to achieve, more than 10% share in a 2 to 3 year time frame.
Got it. Mr. Syngle, with respect to, what we've been observing in the cement space, we've seen that a lot of small cement players have kind of consolidated and merged into the bigger one. Do you see that panning out in paints as well? Because one of your small competitors has also kind of come out and said that they might be looking for certain opportunities, and if they get the right price, they might even go ahead and kind of sell their business.
So overall, see, in any business, when there are large players which are there, there is bound to be some consolidation which is going to take place. And as we go forward, we are already seeing consolidation of one of the players kind of really selling out today in the market to that extent. So I think it is but natural that as we kind of go forward, we will see some form of consolidation, some form of newer players happening. And I think that is going to be a phenomena which we will kind of see in the next 2 to 3 years to 5 years, in terms of looking at that some players will kind of merge, some players will emerge as new to that extent. And I think it's going to be an exciting market as we kind of see ahead.
Absolutely. And Mr. Syngle, one last question. So considering that you being the biggest player amongst, all the paint players in the industry, will you be also looking for acquiring the smaller ones going ahead?
See, overall, we are very clear that any kind of acquisition or a merger would be only if it kind of makes sense from a point of view of our portfolio, from our product thinking and trajectory to that extent. So anything which kind of really comes up, which is interesting, which really adds to the overall business, and is something which kind of gives us strength from a point of view of either technology or markets to that extent, that is always welcome. So we would always kind of look at any complementary strengths in terms of what we can do with any merger or acquisition as we kind of go forward.